Welcome back to the Deep Dive. This is where you come when you need high-quality, synthesized knowledge about the really big trends shaping our world right now.
Yeah.
Today, we're diving into something huge, a force that really promises to reshape global learning. Artificial intelligence in education,
Uh,
AIE.
yeah.
And, this isn't some far-off future tech. This is a massive market right now.
Absolute.
We're talking about a global edtech space expected to jump from, about 5.3 billion US dollars in 2025
So yeah, around there.
all the way up to, a staggering 98.1 billion by 2034.
Wow.
I mean, that growth rate, a CAGR of 38.3%, that really tells you everything about the sheer expectation wrapped up in this tech.
It really does. It speaks to this immense hope that maybe AI can finally tackle some of these decades-old systemic problems in education. So our mission in this deep dive really is to look past those big numbers. We need to analyze that core conflict. Can AI genuinely bridge the huge global education gap,
Yeah.
especially thinking about places like India, Latin America, Africa? Or is it just going to end up creating a more efficient system for the already privileged?
That tension is exactly it. That's what we need to dig into. So if we look at what's actually driving that market growth,
Mm.
what specific application is getting the most attention, the most investment right now?
It's overwhelmingly personalized learning, no question.
Okay.
If you look at the projections, the application market share for 2025, personalized learning systems, they're expected to capture something like 42.7% of the total.
42%. So the bet is really on moving past that old one-size-fits-all classroom.
Exactly. The bet is that the most valuable thing AI can do is tailor education to the individual needs of every single student.
Okay, so let's unpack that promise. Personalization.
Yeah.
Because this has to be more than just, a fancier textbook or an online quiz, right? What's it actually doing for the student?
It's delivering adaptive learning systems. They're often called intelligent tutoring systems or
Oh, okay.
ITS. And that word intelligence is key here. Unlike static software, an ITS is constantly assessing the student. How fast are they going? Where are they struggling? Or maybe where are they excelling?
Hmm.
And then basically in real time, it customizes the content, the examples it uses, even the difficulty level. It really is like having a dynamic virtual tutor.
A curriculum coach almost.
Yeah, exactly. A coach that knows where you are and adjusts your learning path instantly.
And we saw some pretty dramatic proof in the sources that this approach works, didn't
Yeah.
we? Particularly where traditional systems, maybe resource-starved systems, have struggled. I mean, some of those results from pilot programs, they weren't just small improvements, they were huge shifts.
That's what's so striking. Look at Nigeria, for example.
No.
In Edo State, secondary school students used an after-school program. It combined AI tutoring with guidance from teachers.
Okay.
And in just 6 weeks, they showed learning gains that were equivalent to 1.5 to 2 years of typical schooling.
1.5 to 2 years in 6 weeks.
Right.
Wow. That statistic almost forces you to ask, I mean, does that massive leap say more about how good the AI is? Or does it say more about how inefficient the existing traditional system might have been?
Well, it's probably a bit of both, right? But the implication for the traditional system is, yeah, it's undeniable. It suggests those systems were maybe failing to provide that efficient feedback, that personalized pacing. The AI is just filling a massive critical gap. And we see similar kinds of acceleration elsewhere. In India, there was a randomized controlled trial using AI software called iMindSpark.
Rise Mindspur.
It showed learning outcomes that were 2 to 3 times greater than the control schools. And then in some specific local programs, like one in DIB Lucknow, the gains actually jumped to 7 or 8 times greater.
7 to 8 times. Incredible. And it's not just the students' test scores either, is it? The course has also highlighted how AI gives teachers a big lift, an efficiency boost.
Correct. Teachers are just overburdened everywhere, let's be honest, but especially in schools with limited resources. Yeah.
So AI can automate a lot of that administrative load grading, tracking attendance, even drafting initial lesson plans or creating differentiated content for student groups.
Uh-huh.
And the fact that teachers seem generally optimistic about generative AI helping with lesson planning, well, it means they can shift their time away from clerical stuff and towards, direct student interaction, mentoring,
Yeah.
providing the human support AI can't replicate.
And thinking about that global education gap again, it's also about inclusivity, isn't it? AI seems to offer some powerful tools for students who've historically been left behind.
Absolutely. One key area is multilingual learning. Natural language processing, NLP, can help with real-time translation and adapting content.
Okay.
But maybe even more critical is AI's role in assistive tech. Things like text-to-speech, speech-to-text, visual recognition tools. These make content accessible for students with a whole range of vision, hearing, or learning impairments. Okay, so the potential seems enormous. The results are revolutionary in some cases. But here's where it gets, well, tricky. Why aren't we seeing these systems just rolled out everywhere, globally, tomorrow?
Right.
And the answer seems to be that unavoidable reality check. Infrastructure.
Exactly. We have to talk about equitable scale, and that means confronting the digital divide head on. When we look at the global south, the infrastructure gaps are just staggering. We can even point to specific data from India, the UDACE Plus data from 2021-22. That's their big national survey on education infrastructure.
And what does that data set show us about the inequality? It's pretty stark, isn't it?
It really is. It shows private unaided schools have an internet penetration rate that's over 35% higher than government schools.
35% higher. That's fundamental.
It is. But then you look at the actual hardware. In 27 states and union territories across India, fewer than 10% of government schools have fully functional PCs.
Less than 10%.
Yeah. So if you can't get online reliably and you don't even have working computers to run the software, well, the best AI system in the world is useless, isn't it?
And even if you somehow get the hardware and the connections sorted, you still need people on the ground. Facilitators who know how to actually use and manage these systems.
Precisely. That brings us straight to the human capital side of things. The number of teachers actually trained in ICT information and communication technology, it's still alarmingly low across the board, less than 40%.
Less than 40%.
So the tech deployment just fails if the educators who are meant to use it aren't adequately trained and supported.
Okay, so if those cloud-based high-speed AI solutions that dominate the market, if they won't work everywhere because of these issues, what are the alternatives? What are the context-specific solutions for these lower resource settings?
You essentially have to decouple the AI from needing constant high-speed internet.
Right.
And this is where systems designed for intermittent or even zero connectivity become absolutely critical. We're seeing open source projects like Calibri.
Calibri?
It's designed specifically to provide educational content offline. And it's being used right now in low resource settings, even refugee camps, precisely because it gets around that need for a constant connection. But beyond the hardware and the internet, there's another massive hurdle: localization.
Ah, yeah, making it relevant.
Exactly. The systems we build have to be culturally and linguistically relevant.
Yeah.
Deploying AI effectively in regional languages, languages that aren't, global dominant ones, that's incredibly difficult. Even if a system works perfectly in English or Spanish, it fails the student if it can't speak their regional language. Or, maybe more subtly, if the data it was trained on, the examples it uses, the historical context, the cultural references, if that doesn't align with the student's actual local curriculum and life.
And that failure of localization, where the AI is trained mostly on data from wealthy Western contexts, that immediately raises the stakes for the next big piece, policy and ethics. Because if we rush deployment without fixing the infrastructure and the localization problems, we're not just wasting money, we risk making that digital divide even worse through things like algorithmic bias.
That's the crucial link, absolutely. Responsible implementation needs guardrails. Serious ones. The sources really stress that when you lack those localized, culturally appropriate data sets, the risk of algorithmic bias just skyrockets.
Right.
So we need strong ethical principles guiding this integration.
Yeah.
Things like fairness and non-discrimination specifically to manage that bias risk, and transparency.
Meaning we need to know how the AI works.
Essentially, yes. The AI's functions, its outputs, they need to be explainable. We need to understand why the AI suggested a certain learning path for a student, for instance.
And data privacy, especially with kids, that's always a huge red flag anytime you talk about personalized tracking.
It's paramount, absolutely paramount. Many sources point to governance models that focus heavily on privacy protection. You mentioned India earlier, their Digital Personal Data Protection Act, the DPDP Act of 2023. It's very specific on this. It actually mandates verifiable parental consent before collecting data from children.
Verifiable consent. Okay.
Yeah, and that helps ensure the data is only used for the intended educational purpose, not, exploited for tracking or advertising later on. And this feeds directly into accountability, making sure the roles and responsibilities of educators, AI providers, everyone involved are clearly defined.
So if that governance structure fails or isn't there, what are the main risks the sources highlight?
They generally fall into three buckets. First, as we said, ongoing algorithmic bias because the training data isn't local or diverse enough.
Okay.
Second, there's a real concern that over-reliance on AI could actually hinder the development of crucial skills like critical thinking, complex problem solving. If the AI always provides the answer smoothly, does the student ever learn that productive struggle?
That's a really important point.
And third, there's the risk of what people call AI hallucinations.
Where the AI just makes stuff up.
Basically, yes. It generates information that's factually incorrect or misleading. And that's uniquely dangerous in an educational context, obviously.
Definitely. So we clearly need strategy, not just throwing tools at the problem. What kind of strategic frameworks are being proposed to guide this integration responsibly, especially in those emerging markets we talked about?
Well, there are frameworks trying to push for more holistic, national level planning. One key model is this AI preparedness framework. It outlines 4 essential layers that really need to be built up simultaneously.
2 layers.
Yeah. Strong national digital infrastructure as a base, then digital infrastructure within the schools themselves, then comprehensive teacher preparedness, the training we mentioned, and finally student preparedness, making sure students know how to use these tools effectively and safely.
I also like the World Bank's approach, summarized in that 5PS
Right.
framework. It seems really grounded in keeping the focus on human needs and the local situation.
It's a very practical operational framework. It forces you to start by clearly defining the problem you're trying to solve with the tech, then establish the specific purpose of using it, then critically prioritize the place, acknowledging that context is everything. Solutions aren't one size fits all. And crucially, it emphasizes people ensuring human oversight, making sure people are involved in the design and deployment, and finally, checking that the product itself is genuinely fit for purpose in that specific context.
It is encouraging, though, to see that these concerns aren't just theoretical discussions. They're already starting to translate into actual policy changes and curriculum reforms in some places. That signals real government buy-in for sort of future-proofing students.
Absolutely. In India, for instance, the Central Board of Secondary Education, the CBSE, they introduced AI as an optional subject way back in the 2019-2020 school year.
That early. Wow.
Yeah, quite proactive. And that move towards ensuring students are prepared is now being mirrored by various state boards too. Madhya Pradesh, Uttar Pradesh, Kerala. They're integrating AI literacy into their core curricula as well.
So wrapping this up, what stands out most to me from this deep dive is really that profound tension we started with. On one hand, AI offers this almost unbelievable potential for personalization and efficiency. It can give students learning gains that, as we saw, completely leapfrog traditional models.
Right. It offers immediate hope, especially for the most disadvantaged students, the ones currently being failed by systemic inefficiencies. But, and it's a huge but, without simultaneous, massive, and really targeted investment. Not just in the fancy AI software, but in the basic physical infrastructure, the reliable connectivity, and crucially, the teacher training.
Yeah.
AI risks becoming just another tool that makes the existing digital and education divide even wider. It could end up giving the most privileged students an even greater, more personalized advantage.
So it demands an approach that's ethical, rigorous, and intensely localized. Okay, so for you, the listener, to mull over as we finish this deep dive on AIE, here's a final thought to consider.
Just remember that the European Union's Artificial Intelligence Act actually classifies the use of AI in education as a high-risk domain.
High risk.
High risk. And that legal classification really underscores the need for high levels of government oversight, strong accountability, and real ethical rigor in this area everywhere in the world. The challenge isn't just, can we implement AI in schools? The real challenge is shifting the global focus to how we implement it responsibly and equitably for every single learner.